Aurora, Illinois, of course, gave us that update on the investigation. They were saying thousands of tips over the years since Timothy went missing have come in.
But maybe never ever have before have they had someone say that they were actually Timothy before. Sergeant Bill Rowley spoke about the possibility of copycats and what could happen to the person who was found in Newport.
We're always worried about copycats, especially something that has a big national attention like this. So we always worry about that. We always are cautious for any crime that could be sensationalized or any incident that could be sensationalized like this. So the obvious due cautions are provided that, folks who do things like this typically don't get away with their actions. I'm sure that if we follow this further, we're going to see that the person down there is probably going to have some consequences for his actions.
And whenever you have a story like this that makes not only local news, but national and international news, as this story has been shared around on social media, and you talk about hoaxes and the impact of this case, we have on the phone right now Jeff Griesman, the president and CEO of the Child Rescue Network. Jeff, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Oh, thank you.
When you have a case like this that makes headlines and everyone's talking about it, obviously there are good sides and bad sides to a story like this. And when you talk about hoaxes, have you seen that in the past where other stories have been duplicated?
Well, surprisingly, yes, this does happen, and it's such a. You just wonder what type of mind, makes this sort of thing up. And we've certainly had cases in the past where someone genuinely believed they might have been this missing child, and went through the process to find out. But to know you aren't, and to make it up, and to bring up hopes of family and community is just unconscionable.
And thank you for joining us. This is Tanya O'Rourke here in Cincinnati. We appreciate your time, Mr. Griesmer. I am curious, is there any positive news for the family, for the Pitzen family, out of any of this? Does this, because it's become a talking point all around water coolers all over this country?
Absolutely, absolutely. Anytime you can get a case brought up on a national scale is a good thing, because as it was mentioned a few times, families don't give up. Communities don't give up, but families are never going to give up hope of finding that missing child, no matter how much time has passed. But go ahead.
I'm sorry, and I want you to continue with that thought, but then does it also encourage investigators to stay the course and get reinvigorated too?
It does, and my guess is there probably will be more leads coming in the next few weeks because of the exposure that this has given to Timothy's case. So I'm sure investigators will be following up on several of those over the coming weeks, and who knows, maybe the lead will come in because somebody knows something, and that's the case in every single missing child case. Somebody knows something. And hopefully this will spur that person to come forward in this case.
Yeah, and Jeff, one thing the family had spoken about earlier, and the grandmother, was this thread of hope that just by, even though this wasn't Timothy this time around, that the hope is, Timothy's face has been pushed out there again over almost every TV across the country and every social media feed, on network news. His face is out there again, and so that hope does continue for the Pitzen family that indeed, if Timothy's out there and he's old enough and maybe he sees one of the social media feeds or he sees something on TV, he sees someone's looking for him, that he might be able to reach out.
Absolutely, and we've seen it happen in the past. We've seen the miraculous stories of children found after many, many years, even decades. And in some cases, yes, they recognize themselves in a missing child story. So. And that's why parents never give up hope, because it does happen. Miracles do happen. So hopefully this will spur something in Timothy's case.
Jeff, I am curious though. This family has had ups and more downs than ups. Absolutely, this one has to be crushing for them. If you were advising them, what do you say to a family, the Pitzen family, at this moment? Because I just can't imagine what they're going through.
No, none of us can, and or very few people can. I think you just have to accept the love of the community. Know that you've got thousands and thousands of people who are praying for you and praying for Timothy, and want this to have some closure and bring Timothy back home. And They aren't alone. I think that's probably the biggest message we can give them is you aren't alone in this. You've got lots of people looking, and lots of people just saying their prayers every night.
And Jeff, again, since Timothy's face has been out there so much now, the age progression photo and the old video, obviously, when he was with his mother last seen, people may be hesitant since this case has now flopped, essentially, and it's not Timothy and somebody posing to be Timothy. They may be hesitant to say, oh, I think that's Timothy, let me call the FBI or let me call local police because I think this is a sighting. What would you say to folks out there that may be feeling that way, that maybe I shouldn't call because maybe it's not him?
Well, I think anybody who has a suspicion needs to make a phone call. I mean, this was someone who said I am, not someone who thought maybe they were, and this was someone who was pulling a hoax for whatever reason that is. So, no, if you think you suspect something, then make a phone call. It'll get checked out, and if it's nothing, it's nothing, and if it's something, it's truly something.